I will defeat the Powerpuff Girls, or my name isn't Mojo Projo.
Alright, the recording's a bit screwy at the beginning of this video, so I'm just going through the replay feature, and I'll commentate on it until it catches up to a point in the recording where it was working fine. I'm not sure what happened, but anyway, up against Zhulodok and Flame War, and I think I decided to mulligan this one. Yeah, so got into a much faster hand there, decided to play the Inventor's Fair, because against a red player, it's risky to play out Mana Vault if you're not going to use it straight away. Obviously they can get rid of artifacts. And there we draw into Wayfarer's Bauble, so I play the Wayfarer's Bauble here. It might have been better to go Mana Crypt into Sisay's Ring into the Bauble, but I was trying to get the tap land over and done with, so play out the Bauble and crack it straight away in order to get a tapped waste. And then our opponent gets Flame War into play as the vehicle side. We win the flip and draw into Sandstone Oracle, which, whilst our opponent has a decent number of cards in hand still, is going to be of some use to us. So decide to just totally ramp out this turn with Sisay's Ring, and I think I decide to take the risk on Mana Vault as well, because if they've got artifact removal, it'll likely go on the Crypt anyway. And our opponent goes in for a Collector's Vault. So draw into Sword of the Animist. Definitely play out the Zhulodok, and then I was debating whether or not to make use of the Mana Vault and go for Sword of the Animist played and equipped. Obviously that relies on Zhulodok surviving over the next turn, and it often tends not to, but I just decided to get it down here because we can start making land drops. We can rely on the fast mana all we like, but if we're not making land drops and those get taken out, then we're pretty much done for. A Surly Badgersaur comes into play, and our opponent decides to sacrifice the Collector's Vault. So there's a plus counter on the Flame War Brash Veteran, and that has now been transformed. We start gaining our first amounts of life to the Inventor's Fair, which will negate the damage that we take from Mana Vault. And draw into a Blast Zone, which is obviously a land for the turn, so go for the Sandstone Oracle in order to draw a bunch here. And we cascade a couple of times, which is obviously the main reason to go for the Sandstone Oracle here, although the card draw's nice. A Forsaken Monument will give us some buffs, as well as some ramping from our colourless sources. So immediately cascade into a Sol Ring, and that will trigger the Forsaken Monument. We'll gain 2 life from that, and the Sol Ring will tap for more than 2 mana, as though it's not broken enough. Sandstone Oracle enters, and it will draw us 3 cards, because our opponent has 4 in hand. And we get into another Titan in the form of Ulamog's Ceaseless Hunger. So just go through to combat here. We can land 10 points of commander damage, assuming our opponent doesn't want to block here. Sword of the Animist, it was worthwhile going for that Mana Vault play apparently, because we are going to start ramping here, even more than we already have. Ended up getting into the vast majority of the fast mana. Tap down our remaining sources for a total of 5 mana, allows us to put 2 into X on the Everflowing Chalice. So that will tap for 2 mana. 3 of you include the mana from this. And then with some of the remaining mana off the back of the Everflowing Chalice, I decide to move the sword over to the Sandstone Oracle. Okay, and the replay function's going crazy here, so I'll try and explain what my opponent's doing here. Yeah, he goes absolutely nuts, like constantly refilling his hand with the commander. Okay, seems to have eventually calmed down now, so our opponent's got a full graveyard and only 1 card in hand. Our opponent can discard his entire hand and put all the cards exiled with counters on them into his hand. So he did that at some point there, and then can use the Hellmongrel in order to discard stuff. So he's discarded his entire hand. That has put plus counters on this, because he did discard a bunch of creature cards. Whenever he discards a non-creature, non-land card, then he can fight with it. So if he does it in the right order, he can fight one of our big creatures, and he did manage to get rid of our commander. So Zhulodok Void Gorger is in the bin, and we've got some big scary creatures to worry about now, although our opponent does only have 1 card in hand. Yeah, apologies for not covering this live. I'm not sure what happened with the recording originally, but it's a gameplay that's quite interesting. Our opponent does some interesting stuff, so thought I'd try and salvage it. We draw into another land in Darksteel Citadel, played a Wastes from hand, and now I'm working out if we go for both the Titans in Ulamog and the Emrakul. I think I plump for going for Zhulodok first into Ulamog, so that we don't have to worry about this thing constantly fighting all of our stuff out of the way. Yeah, and in order to help me with my decision, I tapped down all the mana to see how much we have. I think we had 24. So play out the Zhulodok and gain a couple of life again. And then it's in for Cascade twice off the back of Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger. Our opponent discards his last card in hand here, which was a swamp. So that means that the Surly Badgersaw is going to make a treasure token. And don't forget, artifacts can be sacrificed to put a plus counter on this and convert it. So we end up cascading into... I don't remember seeing Sensei's Divining Top, but apparently we cascaded into that. Yeah, okay, the replay is totally wrong here. I can't remember what the other cascade was, but it wasn't Sensei's Divining Top, and we certainly didn't go into a Void Winnower either. What actually happened here... Magic Online is so weird. We actually got into Basalt Monolith. Basalt Monolith taps for 3 mana and untaps for 3 mana. With this in play, it taps for 4 and untaps for 3, which is infinite mana. So basically, at this point, we get down the Basalt Monolith, start tapping and untapping everything, and Emrakul will be able to come in and take over our opponent's next turn, thanks to that infinite mana. And we obviously exiled the commander and the Surly Badgersaw there. With the Ulamog, could have got rid of his black mana, but decided against it. So yeah, there we are. I can take you back to the live commentary now. Playing against Aminatu this time, and yeah, some decent mana will allow us to keep this. We are on the play. Imperial Seal, as I've said on the channel multiple times over the years, suggests that this is a powerful deck. It's only the high power decks that play Imperial Seal, because they'll run any tutors that they can, and Imperial Seal is obviously one of those. Go for the Blast Zone, just drew into some fast mana, so play the Sol Ring into Liquimetal Torque, and yeah, I don't think it's worth holding off on the Everflowing Chalice. We'll just play it for 1. That means that we'll have 2 for 6 mana for our commander. Well, our opponent's got fast mana as well, so I don't feel too bad about it, although that's probably what he tutored for. Noteworthy that the Urborg will allow this to tap for mana as well, so that could come in handy. Baleful Strix, haven't seen that artwork before. Doesn't look much like an artifact. Alright, Ugin's Mastery. So maybe we set up going for... We don't have anything to cast into the Zhulodok anyway, so let's get down the Lightning Greaves and the Ugin's Mastery. And now a Necropotence from our opponent. 4 cards in hand, so I won't have to put too much life into that unless he wants to really craft a good hand here. Yeah, going mad with the Necropotence. Aminatu going down to 24 and has 16 cards in hand. We'll have to discard down to hand size, and those cards will get exiled. Alright, so seeing go into exile now. A bunch of lands, Brainstorm, Tezzeret, Yawgmoth's Will, and a Mind Sculptor. Alright, we draw into Void Winnower, so our opponent doesn't have that much mana, so I'm not too worried that he'll be able to go crazy. He'll still be able to get his commander down through Void Winnower, so yeah, let's go for the Zhulodok so that we can cascade. And then we manifest the top card of our library thanks to the enchantment, which is an All is Dust. So how is this worded? When you attack with creatures with total power 6 or greater, you can turn it face up, so that won't do anything with this. It doesn't cast it, it just turns it face up to see if it's a permanent or not. Might as well get down the Doubling Cube and Lightning Greaves onto our commander. Yeah, I suppose we could swing in with the Manifest Creature. Our opponent's not going to block with the Baleful Strix, but we can test him. Chrome Mox for our opponent. 5 cards in hand. Goes down to 4 because puts a Future Sight underneath that, so not bothered about playing cards off the top. A Chrome Mox as well. So wants to play something really big here. Can he afford Omniscience or something? 2 cards in hand into an Arcane Signet. 7 mana. And, okay, it's a Cyclonic Rift. So now goes for refilling with the Necropotence. That does mean that we get the All is Dust from the face down creature though. So 9 cards in hand, our opponent goes down to 14. It's a land and Mystic Remora that was put into exile, so obviously 7 cards in hand still. Alright, and yeah, getting into the Titans, but not so good after a board wipe. So we'll just have to try and rebuild here. Liquimetal Torque off the Sol Ring into Everflowing Chalice for just 1. And then a Lightning Greaves ready for our commander. Yeah, our opponent might get down some decent stuff next turn, so we could always go for the All Is Dust instead. Obviously, it would be nice to get down our commander first. In comes Aminatu, and a Reality Acid, so that will consistently be able to blow up permanents with the Aminatu, gets rid of our Sol Ring straight away, and goes on to the Liquid Metal Torque. So now we've got only 5 mana available, and we've probably lost to the Cyclonic Rift, as so many have before. Mystical Tutor into a Fierce Guardianship, so yeah, they will be able to counter the All Is Dust anyway. Swings in at us with a Baleful Strix, and goes down to 10 to the Necropotence, and a Baleful Strix swings in at us, so probably has counter magic for the Zhulodok if he's not worried about losing his commander. Another combo piece, that is a Felidar Guardian, into Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Yeah, just haven't got into the lands this game, unfortunately. Lightning Greaves onto the commander, and our opponent obviously saw that coming, so Swords to Plowshares onto it. You really need to be hitting your lands and your fast mana in this deck, so it's probably already too late for us, although our opponent's going to need to start gaining life here. Just took a bolt to the Mana Crypt, plays out Kaya Ghost Assassin, drains us for 2, gets rid of our Liquid Metal Torque, and puts that onto the Eye of Ugin. And now slamming down my favourite, Teferi Temporal Archmage. So untap some rocks and a land with that, which takes him into Oath of Teferi, can activate the loyalty abilities again. So has to flicker the Baleful Strix on its entry. Gets rid of our land with the Aminatu. Drains us again with the Kaya. Untaps a bunch of stuff with Teferi again. And probably getting down Aminatu again with 2 cards in hand. So gets rid of another land from us. I'll play it out for another few turns just for the fun of it. Obviously our opponent's got us here, but we'll see if he does anything else that would be of interest for the video. Untapping again with Teferi. I think he flickered the Oath of Teferi so we can activate stuff again. Another favourite of mine, Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. For all the complaining about Jace people have done over the years, I think the Teferi Planeswalkers are way more obnoxious. Now casting Demonic Tutor, so what's that, Tutor number 3. And we've got the Fierce Guardianship to contend with as well. Drew a card to the Hero of Dominaria, plays a Talisman, and then is going to draw some cards to Necropotence. Be funny if he went down to less than 3 by accident and then got bolted by the Crypt, but staying at 6, we'll untap a couple of lands twice, and then Oath of Teferi will bring the Baleful Strix back into play. Yeah, it's just the Baleful Strix that comes back in under the Oath of Teferi. I thought he might have flickered it again with the Aminatu. So 7 cards in hand for our dear opponent, and now we get into a land. Bit too late for that. Our opponent did get bolted, so goes down to 3. We'll obviously be able to gain life with the Kaya though, so we'll play through this turn and then scoop it up. A Strip Mine gets rid of another land. Another Teferi's come in, Master of Time, and I think our opponent went for a loot there. Yep, going for a loot again, and did discard a Winter Orb there, but it ended up going into, oh, of course they're going into exile thanks to the Necropotence, so yeah, some lands in exile and a Winter Orb. Deep Glow Skate will double up the number of counters on Planeswalkers, so could maybe get some emblems with that. Our opponent could flicker this with the Aminatu. So getting the emblem with the Hero of Dominaria, exile a permanent whenever you draw a card, then draining us a couple of times with Kaya, then flickering the Kaya to bring it back in so can drain us a couple more times. And that's pretty much the rinse and repeat win condition here, isn't it? It's just going to take multiple turns to do it. Then drawing a card with Teferi, allowed him to exile something of ours. Untapping a bunch of stuff with big Teferi. Aminatu flickers the Reality Acid again, getting rid of a rock. And can now play the Aminatu again to get rid of our last land, most likely. Yep, there it is. So flickering the Kaya so that he can do the drain thing again. And then did it again with the Kaya, so down we go to 26. Another Talisman, 3 cards in hand. Our opponent's at 19 life, so can keep his hand full with the Necropotence, of course, and puts life into that. Alright, so going through to our end step, ending the turn with 9 cards in hand. See what he exiles from his hand, and we'll leave it there, I think, because it's going to take too long, all this. Getting rid of a Primeval's Glorious Rebirth and a Preordain. We'll say good game and leave it there, I think. So hopefully you got some enjoyment from these games. Always fun to whip out Zhulodok again. Big thank you to the patrons for their support of the channel. I'm Tribalkai. Thank you for watching.